Good morning. What a great day it is. I got an early run in today. Saw an 8-pointer buck out there in the woods just prancing around like he owned the joint. It was really cool. Hope your day is going to be a great one. I got a little road trip in store for me today and some hang time with a close friend. So it's going to be a great one for me. I was thinking about the idea of thinking differently. How do you think uniquely compared to the culture for which we are surrounded? There's this piece of meat up here between our ears called our brain, and that's where habit patterns are stored. That's where perceptions are stored. That's where ideas are stored. And that's where the verse, you shall know the truth, and the truth will set you free, is aiming at your brain to get the lies out of your brain so you might live more abundantly with truth rather than the lies that are out there. And so the brain patterns, the habits that are there. I don't know if you've ever driven in a snowstorm where there's ruts in the road and maybe you need to switch lanes or turn, or you have to get out of those ruts. And when you get out of those ruts, it starts throwing the car into all kinds of crazy things, tailspins even, and it's an anxious thing to get out of those ruts, those ruts of thoughts, those ruts of habits that have been stored in your brain. But that's where life is going to happen, is when you can get out of those into the mind of Christ for which you have. And the mind of Christ is going to lead you to places that maybe you've never been before. There won't ever be a rut there, and you may never go there again. You may never do it again. I was telling a friend this morning about I was asked to do a funeral for somebody I hadn't met a number of years ago, and that's never happened again. But I had to trust God to eulogize this person, and so that was a outside of the box, different way of thinking, and it was thinking differently. And so in Chronicles, there's the chronicle or the story of a lot of things that went on in the nation of Israel. And the divided nation of Israel was divided into two parts. Part of it was called Israel and part was called Judah. And both of them had a series of kings, some of which were evil, the majority of which were evil, and some were godly. And in this particular story I was looking at, it was in Second Chronicles chapter 13, and the king of Israel was Jeroboam. And when you read about Jeroboam in chapter 12, verse 15, it says there were wars continually between Rehoboam and Jeroboam. And then if you go down to verse 2 in chapter 13, it said, and there was war between Abijah and Jeroboam. And so Jeroboam was a frictious person. He just liked to get into things. And he finally, you go down to 2 Chronicles 13, and it said that verse 13, it says, but Jeroboam had set an ambush to come from the rear, so that Israel was in front of Judah and the ambush was behind them. So you have this war. Israel was in front and it was behind Judah, and they had entrapped them. And from every possible way you could think about it, Judah was about ready to get decimated by Israel. And it said, then the men of Judah raised a war cry. And when the men of Judah raised the war cry, then it was that God routed, in other words, smote was the biblical word, routed Jeroboam and all of Israel before Abijah and Judah. So to think differently, you have to believe that God fights for you. You have to believe that the problems you see are not your problems. The problems that are physically all around you, they're well within God's realm. And so that's what happened there. Jeroboam had strategically outmaneuvered that nation of Judah and got whooped by the men. And here's why Jeroboam got whooped. It said, verse 18, it says, and the sons of Israel were subdued at that time, and the sons of Judah conquered because they trusted in the Lord. They conquered not because of their great skills and things. They conquered because they trusted in the Lord. And then if you flip over the next page, what that word conquered means, if you look at it, the word conquer means they were strong. They were strong because they trusted in the Lord. And then it says in verse 20 that Jeroboam did not again recover strength. Jeroboam never trusted in the Lord is what that seems to say. And so the deal is this, is your strength is not in your abilities. Your strength is not in your strategies. Your strength is not in your wealth. Your strength is in the Lord. And the more you know his heart, the more you can trust him, the more the battles will be taken care of for you without you really ever lifting a hand. Maybe you call out a war cry, but that's about all it's going to take. So today, know where your strength's from and have a great one. See ya.